Hello everyone. My viewers often tell me that I make collage look easy. So I'm here to show you how collage can be easy for everyone. I use 3 basic steps in my process. I do backgrounds first, I add focal images, and then on top I add details. While I put my pages together, I keep some basic guidelines in the back of my mind, and I use images and colors that I like. If you are using images and colors that you really don't like, you're not going to like your finished product. So in this video, I'm going to go over my basic collage process. And that starts with backgrounds. I use neutral, low contrast, light color things in my backgrounds, mostly book pages. Book pages are my go-to. So I use book pages, security envelope, patterns, scrapbook paper, painted papers, and non-focal point magazine image, things like text and things that are out of focus. Trees, buildings, windows, a landscape, a seascape, something that adds interest but doesn't really catch your eye and is not competing with your focal points. So the two things that I keep in mind when I am doing backgrounds is I like torn edges in the centers of my page. Torn edges tend to blend your page together just a little bit easier. I do randomly tear my background fodder, and a lot of times I'll be left with straight edges, and I put the straight edges on the straight edges of my paper, my background, or my substrate. And so I've got the torn edges in the center blending together very nicely. The two things that I keep in mind when I'm doing my backgrounds: torn edges in the center, and I use large pieces. If you use large pieces, your backgrounds will be less busy and they will not compete so much with your focal points. So the second part, the second step, is adding focal images. So I like to keep my focal images in baskets. I sort them according to size. I have all kinds of random things in my baskets. So I can flip through my baskets and find something that just catches my eye, and then play with those images. And then I don't have to sort them out or find images again when I'm looking for my next project images. I can just grab my baskets and I know I've got things ready to go. If I have gotten things out and I've tried to fussy cut around something and it just didn't work for my page, I'll put it back. It'll work for a different page. But I like to keep my images as I find them. Usually they're pretty square. This way, when I'm doing a background, my background pieces don't always cover my page. Sometimes I have little holes that need to be filled. And so if I leave a background on an image like that, I can cover up some of those holes with the background of the image. But I don't necessarily like the straight edges in my collage. So many times I will just tear the straight edges off if I need to fill a hole. Or if I don't have a hole to fill, I will contour that image just a little bit so I can see more of the background behind it. It makes it look like it's more of the page when you've got it contoured a little bit. So I do prefer fussy cut images, but there are ways to get around fussy cutting. I do have a video fussy cutting and ways to get around it. There's other things that I keep in mind when I am adding focal points. The rule of thirds. When you've got your page, the rule of thirds is you, in your mind, draw lines on thirds of each page. And you want to put your focal images on those lines or where the lines intersect. It adds interest to your page. So if you have an image that's really in the center, it's front and center, it's got a lot of attention on it, it better be a really, really strong image to make the collage look good. But if you uncenter that image, a lot of times that will help move your eye around your page. So I use the rule of thirds quite a bit. My things that I keep in mind, my guidelines for myself, are rule of thirds. I like to use odd number images. I like to overlap things. I use scale. I use different scale, and I use repetition. If I use one or more of these guidelines, my images on my page interact with each other more and makes my page more interesting. So I get my images that I think I might want to use, and I keep my guidelines in my mind, and I put things together. So odd numbers is obvious. For some reason, an odd number of elements on a page makes your eye more rested. It makes your eye move around the page just a little bit more. It's more appealing. Overlapping, it causes your elements of your page to interact better with each other. So if you have things that are just on the page, they look like they're just on the page. If you start to get them to touch, they look more like they're a blended page. Scale, I like to play with scale. Large things be small, small things be large. A little house with a great big bird on top. I like to play with scale a lot. And repetition. Repetition can be a lot of things. It can be like a theme on a page. You're using a lot of coffee cups or something like that. So you're repeating that theme throughout the page. Or you're repeating a shape, like the circles are here, or a color. Most of these images are brown. So those kinds of things are a repetition. So my last step is adding the details. When I add details, I am also fixing problems. Okay? I do add very small images, and I have my little images in these little containers, so I can again flip around and find little bits of maybe the same color or something just the right size, or something will catch my eye. I go through these and I look for them. Another thing that I use for details are postage stamps, tickets, stamped images, stickers, paper punches. You've got the paper punches. They give you really good shapes. Some die cuts. And that store-bought ephemera that you just never know what to do with, those are great for details. Details make your collage look finished, like a cherry on the top of an ice cream sundae. So when I am adding the details to a collage, I'm also fixing problems that I have on my page. I want to make sure that any holes that I made while I was doing the backgrounds, I want to make sure that there's nothing that I don't want to see. I want to cover everything. I want to make sure that there's the straight edges are not catching my eye. One of these, like this image, has straight edges, and it definitely catches your eye. One way to fix that would be to use something that you used in your background, a little strip of torn paper, and cover that straight edge with a torn paper. It blends the image in so much better. So this image also has a little blemish on it. It's from a catalog. And so I don't really want to see that in my collage. So I would go to my details and find something that would cover that up. Maybe a postage stamp or a ticket. This forces me to overlap things, make things more interesting, and I am covering up something that I really don't want to see. So this helps. I also use some small pictures, and I didn't grab any of the small pictures out, so let me just grab a couple little things here. I also use small pictures that are fussy cut or fussy torn. That helps blend in some straight edges as well. So I will add little images to my collage in places to add interest. I also fix things that are floating. You know, here's a ship and it's floating on the page. It's just sitting there in midair, really not doing a whole lot of anything. Now I can take a piece of washi tape or a piece of paper and make sure that it's anchored to the edge of the page, and then whatever I have that's floating has something to rest on, so it doesn't look like it's floating. Okay? So for me, a collage is like an ice cream sundae. You've got your backgrounds that is kind of like vanilla ice cream. Most people use vanilla for their sundaes because they want to put toppings on top. Most people really like their toppings, but I'm a hot fudge sundae person myself. I love hot fudge, but I don't want to sit there and eat just hot fudge. Your toppings are like your focal images. They are what you want to be looking at. So your background is the vanilla ice cream. It's going to break up your images, have some place for them to gather so that you enjoy your collage. So I want to make sure that my backgrounds are like vanilla ice cream. They're neutral, low contrast, they're light colored. My images are going to be able to be seen on my backgrounds. So the focal images are like the toppings, your hot fudge or your strawberry or your pineapple. You want your toppings to be about half of the surface of your background. You want to be able to see some of your background, but your focal images really are the star of the show. You want to be able to see your focal images. And then the details are like the whipped cream and nuts and cherry on top. You want just a little sprinkle of those things. Those things make your collage really interesting and make your collage look finished. So I treat my collages like an ice cream sundae. Mostly I have background. Half of my background is focal images, like my toppings, and then I sprinkle on some little details like I would nuts, a little bit of whipped cream, and a cherry. So I do have videos in my playlist called Collage that go into more detail about some of the guidelines I use, fussy cutting and ways to get around it, and the basic process that I use. More details, more in-depth, some other things that I do. I wanted to keep this video pretty short, and if you are interested in seeing more of this process, go ahead and go over to the playlist and you'll find those short videos there. I also have recorded live streams. So many times on live streams, I do a lot of collaging, and you can see the recordings and watch as I put together a collage page. And you can hear my thought process, see why I select something or why I don't like other things. And so you can see more of my process if you would like to see that. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that this helps everybody just a little bit. And collage is fun. Collage is easy. Everyone can do collage with just a few basic steps. Thanks for watching.